Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I'm Dr. Sudhanshu Joshi from Doon University, Dehradun. Today we are going to discuss about a module, Strategic Leadership under paper Strategic Management. The learning objective of the module is to explore the nature of strategic leadership and the nature of strategy to address the following questions. What is the definition and the focus of strategic leadership? How does strategic leadership differ from leadership? What makes strategic leadership so difficult and challenging? How can strategic making and strategic implementation process work in organizations to create and ensure success? And what are implications for the leaders of making and implementing strategy? In simple words, strategy can be defined as establishing a process, a plan to achieve the mission and envision future of the firm. In recent times, strategy is transformed phenomenally as successful tool that engage various stakeholders to participate in economic success of the firm.
The global economy and the worldwide trends bring new challenges filling the corporate life. Along with the changing economic paradigm, the political and economic uncertainties bring about an increased demand for the right leaders with vision and authority. Moreover, the economic recession of the last decade has stressed the importance of leadership as a significant part of the corporate strategic management. Viewed from a distance of several years, this topic should be reconsidered and situated, analyzed from different angles. Figure first depicts how leadership prevails and acts as the backbone of the business decision-making and organization excellence. Strategic leadership ensures six skills that encourage leaders to think strategically and navigate the unknown effectively. Skill includes A. Anticipate, B. Challenge, C. Decide, D. Align, and E. Learn. An effective strategic leader should focus on developing these abilities as suggested in table first. Anticipate. Interact with customers, suppliers, and other partners to understand their challenges. Conduct market research to understand competitive perspective. Gauge their likely reactions to new initiatives and predict potential disruptive offerings. It includes use scenario planning to imagine various futures and prepare for the unexpected. Fourth, understanding business strategies of fast-growing rivals and examine their actions. Challenge includes, first, focus on root causes of a problem rather than the symptoms. 2. List long-standing assumptions about an aspect of your business. 3. Creation of open image among stakeholders. 4th, capture input from people not directly affected by a decision who may have a good perspective on the repercussions. 5th, create a rotating position for the express purpose of questioning the status quo. 3. Interpret. First, focus yourself to zoom in on the details and out to see the big picture. 2. Activity look for missing information and evidence that discomforts your hypothesis. Third, supplement observation with quantitative analysis. Fourth, step away, go for a walk, look at art, put on non-traditional music, play ping pong to promote an open mind. Decide. First, reframe binary decision by explicitly asking your team, what other options do we have? Second, divide big decisions into pieces to understand components parts and better see unintended consequences. Third, tailor your decision criteria to long-term versus short-term projects. Fourth, let others know where you are in your decision process. Are you still seeking divergent ideas and debate, or are you moving towards closer on choice? Fifth, determine who needs to be directly involved and who can influence the success of your decision. Next is align, which includes, first, bridge the organization communication gap. Second, identify key internal and external stakeholders, mapping their positions on firm's vision and organization style, and pinpointing any misalignment of interest. Look for hidden agenda and coalitions. Third, use structure and facilitation conversation to explore areas of misunderstanding or resistance. Fourth, reach out to resistors directly to understand their concerns and then address them. Fifth, be vigilant in monitoring a stakeholder's position during the rollout of your initiative or strategy. The last one includes learn. First, institute after action reviews, document lessons learned from major decisions or milestones, which includes termination of failing project, and broadly communicated resulting insights. More rewards to managers who are trying something laudable for fail in terms of outcomes. Second, conduct annual learning audits to see where decisions and team interactions may have fallen short. Third, identify initiatives that are not producing as expected and examine the root causes. This table number first, exhibits the abilities to focus by a strategic leader, and the source of this table is Harvard Business Review 2015. Defining strategic leadership. The term strategic leadership refers as the strategic outlook of managers' potential to express a strategic vision for organization or a part of an organization. It may be a process also. Primarily involved into motivating, persuade others to acquire the vision as a whole. Strategic leadership can also be defined as utilizing a strategy in the management of employees.
Factors affecting strategic leadership. The term strategic leadership is getting momentum in the last 1 decade due to the following factors. First is pace of change. There is a quick change in the product service innovation. New products is being developed faster, fast change in the business landscape. Therefore, there is an emerging requirement of establishing right relationship between changing business landscape and leadership at business levels. Increasing uncertainty is the second factor. Due to the uncertainty, long-term forecasting and planning becomes essentially important in the recent times. Growing ambiguity. Problem levels are required to be clearly indicated and required to be solved using competent human resources. Increasing complexity. Business problems are getting complex. The amount of usable information required at process level getting importance for operational decisions.
At organization level, there is an urgent requirement to develop an organization strategy to support strategic leadership at large. It is a learning process that includes 5 elements. First, positional assessment. Second, understanding the vision. Third, strategic formulation. Fourth, identifying and implementing tactics. Fifth, checking the progress.
Scope of strategic leadership. Conceptually, the focus of strategic leadership is sustainable competitive advantage or the enduring success of the organization. Sustainable competitive advantage is a key focus of strategic leadership. Strategic leadership is exerted when the decisions and actions of leaders have strategic implications for the organization. The scope of strategic leadership can be understood as strategic leadership is broad in scope. The impact of strategic leadership is often over a long period of time. Strategic leadership often involves significant organizational changes.
Properties of strategic leadership. Property includes scope. The broad scope of strategic leadership means that it impacts areas outside the leader's own functional areas and business unit, and even outside the organization. This broad scope requires seeing the organization as an interdependent and interconnected system of multiple parts where decisions in one area provoke action in other areas. The scope of strategic leadership extends beyond the organization, acting on and reacting to trends and issues in the environment. Second property includes duration. Like its scope, the time frame of strategic leadership is far reaching. The strategic leader must keep long term goals in mind while working to achieve short term objectives. In contrast, not all leadership requires this forward view to be effective. Very good operational leaders manage day to day functions effectively and are skilled at working with people to ensure that short term objectives are met. This is important work, but it does not always need to take the long term into account. C. Organization culture. A third way strategic leadership different from leadership in general is that it results in significant change and impact the organization in the longer run. For example, consider the strategic impact of a new compensation system that touches all the parts of the organization, provides a structure for defining differences in roles and appropriate salary range, and ties performance plans and measures to strategic objectives of the organization, giving people a clear understanding of what is required to advance along various careers ladder. Focus of strategic leadership. Strategic leadership provides a framework that primarily focus on values, vision, business techniques that focus organization to follow certain courses of action to remain competitive and relevant. Strategic leadership ensured a learning organization to adopt various survival strategies to remain competitive and sustain in the marketplace. Also, to ensure adaptation towards changing technology, climate change, and economic factors risk the organization becoming obsolete. It balances a focused, analytical perspective with human dimension of strategy making. Overall, strategic leadership engage entire business in one strategic thread in order to lay the foundation for building winning organizations that can define, commit, adjust, and adapt their strategy wherever required.
Process of strategic leadership. Figure third depicts the process of strategic leadership. Various stages involved in strategic leadership includes defining leadership requirements. As formal definition of leadership depicts the term leadership as a process of social influence in which a person can enlist the aid and support of others to accomplish common tasks. Understanding leadership requirements becomes a focal requirement of successful and effective leadership. Various factors that needs to be considered while defining the leadership requirements includes traits, situational interaction, functions, behavior, power, vision, and values. Assess current behavior. There is always a requirement to evaluate the behavior of successful leader, determining a behavioral taxonomy and identifying broad leadership styles. It is observed that positive reinforcement can be used to resolve a business issue. For example, an employee does not show up to work on time every day. Then a manager of this employee decides to praise the employee for showing up on time every day. The employee actually shows up to work on time. As a result, the employee come on time more often because employee likely to be praised. In this example, praise, which is a stimulus, is positively enforcing for the employees because employees arrived at work on time, which is a behavior. More frequently, after being praised for something, shown up to the work on time. Then next point is assess organizational implication. Assessment of organization implications of leadership on overall processes, function, style is important to know the effectiveness of leadership. Develop strategic individual team organization. Develop strategic individual team organization for successful implication of overall strategy is required. Team structuring is essentially required. Then reassessment. Reassessment of processes, evaluation, and redesigning of the same for the next level of decision making.
Role of strategic leaders. Besides two activities like industrial analysis, competitive analysis, strategic leaders has to perform lot of organizational roles and activities. The roles and the responsibilities primarily aim to develop a strategic vision and mission, setting goals and objectives, crafting a strategy, executing a strategy, and evaluating the performance. In other words, we may define the scope of strategic leadership as vision, leadership as command, leadership as symbol, and leadership as decision making. Figure 4 depicts the scope of leadership from different perspectives. Principles of strategic leadership. We have 10 principles as stated by Strategy and Business in 2016 issue, which includes distribution responsibility as the first principle, be honest and open about information as second principle, create multiple paths for praising and testing ideas as third principle, make it safe to fail as fourth, provide access to other strategists as fifth principle, develop opportunities for experiences-based learning as sixth principle, hire for transformation as seventh principle, bring your whole self to work as eighth principle, find time to reflect as ninth principle, recognize leadership development as an ongoing practice as 10th principle. Strategic leadership as sustainable competitive advantage for the firm. Individuals and teams enact strategic leadership when they think, act, and influence in the way that promotes sustainable competitive advantage of the firm or organization. The focus of the strategic leadership in sustainable competitive advantage or the enduring success to the organization is great. Indeed, this is the work of strategic leadership to derive and to move an organization so that it will thrive in the long term. This is true whether the organization is for profit or not for profit. It depends only on whether your organization seeks and achieves an enduring set of capabilities that provide distinctive values to stakeholders over the longer term. In whatever sector your organization operates or whatever bottom line you are measured by. Traits of a strategic leader. There is always a need to understand the personal aspiration of a leader. It reflects the kind of leadership one could have. The major traits are values. Values can be defined as what values are the most central and critical to how you approach work. What values do you want to know for practicing, not just preaching? Leadership legacy. What do you want to be your leader legacy to others? What do you want others to say about your leadership after you have left your current position or the organization? What lasting impact do you want to have, not just on the organization, but also on the people around you? Next trait is career aspiration. What kind of role would you like to have 5 or 10 years down the lane? Describe the critical elements of what for you would be an ideal opportunity for strategic leadership. Strategic leadership as learning process. There are many theories, approaches to leadership that try to identify a methodology on how to identify and objectively measure effectiveness of leaders. Table third exhibit various approaches to define leadership as a process. Table third various approaches to strategic leadership. Theories given by Antonakis et al. Gave the approach, which includes leadership as situational and contingency approach. It includes transformation leadership, transaction leadership, and trade-based theory, and information processing. In 2006, Keller gave a separate approach to strategic leadership, which states that the transactional leadership builds on monitoring and controlling of followers and rewarding desirable behavior. In 2004, Judge and Piccolo gave the approach on leadership as two fundamental tools are suggested for effective strategic leadership, namely contingent reward and management by expectations. In 1997, Bass and in year 2004, Judge and Piccolo, their leadership gave the approach on leadership as the transformation leadership is based on charisma of our leader and inner motivation of his collaborators. Tools including idealized influences, charisma, inspirational motivation, intellectual stimulation, and individualism. Stakeholders' values in strategic leadership framework. Strategic leaders are ultimately responsible for creating vision and value across the units, individuals, and organization at different levels, as well as for developing effective relationships between the organization and environmental stakeholders. Creating value for the multiple stakeholders could be done with innovation and imagination by reinventing the methods and systems so they produce more value for all stakeholders. Modern organization must be ambidextrous, means able to execute and innovate, in order to be successful because of the multiple environmental pressures they face and because they must organize a diverse workforce to do this work. Discussion about diversity must include a variety of topics. With regards to the demographic curve, it will be at least the subject aging. Figure 6 illustrates various processes comes under development to create stakeholders' value.
So students, let's now summarize what we have learned in this module. Strategic leadership is at same level a high position in an organization or a society, a personal characteristic, and a relationship between leaders and the followers. Strategic leaders are partially born and partially made. Various traits of a leader includes value, leadership, legacy, and career aspiration. Individuals and a team enact strategic leadership when they think, act, influence in ways that promote the sustainable competitiveness of the organization. Thank you.